Hello, here we are again. Welcome to our second very new episode of the MFile Change Your Music, Change Your Life podcast. Today, we're going to go over a bit of why I started wanting to do this a bit more. It's been a project that's been in the works for a long time. I've been thinking about a lot of these things for over 2 years now. Some of the first ideas, there were a lot of things that were spinning around in my head that kind of came together into this, but there was a moment very clearly that everything came together and it was like, okay, I think I have to build something here. So that was the moment that kind of started me on this journey. Basically at the time I had been out of school for a few years. I made some headway with bands and stuff. We were, playing a lot of shows. We put out an album. That was really great. We were gaining a lot of traction and it was fun. Like I feel like I was able to cross a lot of things off the list. I had a lot of expectations for myself as a musician and as a writer, and these were all things that I wanted to kind of do. And as the years went on, it was like check, keep going and making some things happen. I worked a few years in a shop making signs. That was my day job. I worked in the plastics department. Very exciting. So I would cut Lexan faces and, a large majority of signs that you would see for outside of shops. We would cut the letters and I would put trim around them, and I would cut large faces for like shopping centers and stuff like that. And it was mindless work, but I was keeping busy and I was working with my hands and stuff. So that was kind of, I felt like I was doing something productive and learning skills and working with tools and stuff. So I had something to talk about with my dad. He kind of, I think he dug that I was working in more of what he considered like a manly job, finally. So, but I started getting really burnt out and frustrated. I was there for 3 years and, there was, I had some illnesses. I was having problems with my asthma flaring up. I think I might have got some kind of extra respiratory illness that was like a mystery. It kind of laid me out for a while. It started affecting a lot of things. It affected my singing. I also somehow came across a I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was like a bacteria. It's like flesh-eating bacteria. So I was in the hospital a lot and I was getting sick and I just didn't have any energy, and the energy I did have was going into a job that I felt really stuck at, and I wanted to focus more on music. So I started kind of trying to plan my way to get out, and getting really sick obviously played a big part in that. So I decided it was time to leave and just kind of focus on what I wanted to do and getting myself better and focusing on music. So I wanted to become a better musician. I wanted to progress as a songwriter. I wanted to teach music and pass on all the things that I had learned and that I had experienced. Making your way with a band these days is pretty difficult. I'm sure a lot of you know that. The whole landscape has changed, and how you go about interacting with people has changed. With the internet and social media and the way you can do things, you don't need to rely nearly as much on a major record label. It's easier for an indie artist to get out there, but at the same time, it is harder because you would normally have a whole team of people working for you, and now you have to wear so many hats. So I needed to gain a lot of new skills with online marketing and social media management and understanding just this whole other level and aspect of getting our music out there. We also needed to look at more ways of like making money as a musician. Like I said, like with streaming and stuff, oh great, tons of people are hearing your song, but then you get a check for like 30 cents. So we needed to start thinking about other ways of bringing money in so that we could focus on the band. A big struggle that I'm sure many musicians know all about is, you know, you end up being the weekend warrior. You go to your day job and you work and you tell people you're a musician and they kind of giggle and laugh, and then maybe one or two of them will come out and see you play and be like, oh, okay, I get it. But you're kind of stuck because all your energy has to go into your job so you can afford to live, but that makes your music suffer. You can't give it the kind of attention that it deserves. So basically we just needed money, period. Things were getting kind of rough, and leaving my job and just being like, if I stay here, I'm gonna physically die, along with being emotionally crippled by just being in a stagnant job that didn't excite me. But it was hard because I made a giant leap and didn't really think through what my next steps were gonna be. I just knew I needed to get out. But at that time I started worrying that maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I put too much faith into myself, being, you know, I'm good enough as a musician and an artist and a songwriter and a performer that I can pay the bills. And, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of money coming in, so there was a lot of self-doubt. You know, I wasn't sure if I had what it takes. Like, I started just kind of feeling like maybe the reason why I'm not getting enough money and doing all of this stuff is because I'm just not good enough. I started doubting my choice to go to music school in the first place. Something that had brought me so much joy and opened so many doors and gave me so many opportunities, but then I was stuck. And when you get in that rut, you can really only see like what's directly in front of your face, and if that's a bunch of struggle and you know, like a lack of purpose and meaning and direction, then it throws every decision that you made to get you to that point into question. It's really hard not to get trapped in that kind of a rut. So I just kind of started doubting everything. I doubted if my music was ever any good. You know, and sometimes you feel when you're in that rut like somebody turns the tap off because you're too focused on being stressed out and worrying about bills and worrying about the rent and everything. And how are you supposed to sit and just be creative without that kind of stuff sneaking in and taking up your space in your brain? So it was just a massive, difficult time that was just kind of compiling as time went on. So within the band, we had made a ton of progress, but then everything kind of slowed to a crawl. You know, we had the whole mission of putting an album out and releasing it and recording it, and that took a ton of time, like 2 years of work. But then it was out, and we weren't really doing anything with it, which was weird. You know, and as I started learning more about what we need to do on social media and ways we could be trying to bring in revenue for the band that wasn't necessarily just playing or writing music, the ideas weren't really gaining traction. I felt a lot of times I would come in and be like, oh, I got this crazy idea, or I'd make a post in the group and share it with everybody, and nobody would really be interested. So that was kind of disheartening. And it's not that it was like, oh, they're stupid and they don't get it. Like, I had only just figured these things out, and I was probably raving like a madman about it. So there's often that disconnect where it's like, I don't know how to make people as excited about this stuff as I am. I've had that, epiphany moment where this is a good idea, and then I go and try and explain what it is rather than like why you should do it, and kind of take them through that process of why it's important. And so it was a lot of just like throwing things at the wall and this is what we need to do, this is what we need to do. And we just kind of started spinning our wheels a bit and trying to go in all different directions. And, there was money out there to be gotten, but everybody was just so busy. It was like, hey, we got to juggle these balls, but everyone's already over here juggling these ones and they don't want to take it on anymore. So, it's hard to try and pull together as a group in a new direction. We've been going in this one giant way for so long, and everybody wanted a break from that, which is totally reasonable. It was a ton of work and it was an exhausting experience, but you get an album out and then instantly people are like, okay, I'm sick of these songs. But like, you drop 12 grand on an album, you need to get it out there. It's not just going to sell itself. So it was just hard to branch out online. It was hard to get people excited about stuff. And there was a lot to learn and a lot to set up to be able to take those next steps. So things were just kind of, it was like a tractor pull and everybody was going in different directions. In terms of teaching, like I wanted to teach and I wanted to get making money with music and get away from depending on the money that was coming in from the old job. But like teaching in a studio, they take half of the money for facilitating and finding students, which is fair, but like that's also a big cut. So you're not gonna get a whole lot of students, especially right away. So if you have a full schedule where you're working full time, you've probably been adding students on for years and you have to be able to juggle things. So in terms of like, oh, I don't have a job right now, so I'll do this, it's not the best way to go about it. Also, the owners can often kind of stifle your teaching style and your methods. Believe it or not, I have been told by owners of studios to like not teach music theory. The kids don't want to learn that, even though they would ask, and trying to get them learning, to be independent, didn't fly in some places. So that was like incredibly frustrating. And then you get young students who are like too young to even hold the guitar properly. Like I want to talk about like advanced harmony and approach techniques and like songwriting stuff, and it's like the kid doesn't like, the kid's 3 times smaller than the guitar they're holding, and they're like 5, and this is my Wednesday night. Like there are moments where you have those exciting things happen and the kids are getting it and it's amazing, but a lot of it was kind of disheartening. I felt like I wasn't really using my brain. It was the equivalent of having the job in the shop. Like I might as well have just been doing that. It was steady money, so it was better than than what I was doing teaching a lot of the time. And then of course there's like the older kids getting into like the teens where they don't really want to be there. They're being forced. They argue with you about what you teach and they don't need to know this, and oh, we know better. And it's like, yeah, I remember what it's like to be 13, but like, just listen to what I'm saying. And then of course that kind of stuff would get parents involved, where the kid doesn't practice and then the parents are like, my kid's not getting any better, and they blame you. And then they're like, you know, yelling because you're teaching their kid music theory and they're not learning songs, or they're not learning enough music theory and they're learning too many songs. And just, it was an incredibly frustrating time. So yeah, I mean, not being able to teach higher level ideas and concepts, that was where my heart was at. So my heart started leaving naturally. I didn't want to be there. So I started losing interest in a lot of music because all the music that was in my life seemed to be kind of stuck. I was feeling stuck. Everything was stagnating. I was starting to feel like I wasn't living up to my potential and my ideas and my skills and stuff. It just, nothing was being really appreciated or given the proper environment in which to work. So obviously, like, just everything kind of needed a change. You know, you can't keep going on that kind of a level without something just breaking. So I kind of decided, like, okay, I want to go back through all of my notes from school. I have this giant thick binder, and it's got like a file folder thing in the front, and it's huge and heavy, and it's all separated into different categories. There's stuff on like sight reading, and there's a bunch of old charts, and there's stuff on harmony and chords and scales and arpeggios and practice and stuff like that. And I just was like, you know, I haven't looked at this in a while. I think I should probably just start looking through and seeing what I can find. I wanted to take myself through all this info that I had been given in school. I could strengthen what I'd learned, maybe show some things that I missed and didn't really get right away, and give me some new ideas, try and reignite that passion for music that I felt was kind of like slipping away. There was so much information. Like, it was crazy, like just stacks of paper. And I needed to organize my notes to make them coherent. Some of the classes would just be like, I'd look at a note and be, this doesn't make any sense. It's so vague. And I would have to try and remember and pull things back and look through and find random stuff scribbled. And luckily there's a date. So it's like, okay, this might be with this. And it was insane. I needed to try and make all of this information coherent. Some of the classes, especially second year, we had something that was called Guitar Masterclass. And it was basically like each group of musicians, like there'd be a guitar one and a piano one and a bass one and a drums one, and you'd have the one teacher, and it would be like a big master class, and all the guitar players would be in there, and it'd be like a lecture class and a workshop. And, you know, our teacher for that, his teaching style was very much like, I'm a university professor and this is a lecture, and here's some really crazy stuff that's going to blow your mind. And trying to go through those notes, they're all over the place. Like, I think it was a combination of myself and him just being like, this is important, this is important, this is important. So, you know, that it took so much time, and I wanted to try and create some kind of efficient practice routine, methods and workouts and stuff, so that I could cover all of this stuff. Because if you were to sit and actually try and practice everything that, you know, I was finding in all of my notes and all the things I was expected to do on a regular basis in school, you'd be practicing for 76 hours, and then you'd be like, okay, gotta start the next routine, you know, like, it just wasn't possible. So looking through and trying to find the efficiencies of how can I combine maybe 3 or 4 things together and cycle through in different ways and stuff like that. And it took like several days of going through all these notes and trying to find consistencies and writing things out and organizing it a bit better. And, you know, I started realizing like how much I actually learned. It was hard because, you know, teaching kids who don't want to be there, and you just feel like, what am I even doing? But then I start looking through my notes and remembering all these revelations that I had. sitting in class and practicing in the practice room, and you know, like it all of this was in here, and there was so much that was like at work when I was playing, but then I was going back and seeing all the little things I had to learn to get to that point. It was the equivalent of climbing a mountain and being like, oh, like I feel like all these rocks look the same and I haven't gone anywhere different for so long. But then you finally take that moment to look behind you and see like the staggering cliffs that you have had to scale to get to that point. So that was kind of like a light bulb moment where I was like, okay, my brain contains a lot of very useful information. I have information that people not only want, but like would need. It's all really useful, and people might not even know that they need it. Because I mean, the amount of stuff that if you had given me this stuff 15 years ago, I would have looked at it and been like, this is in another language, some of this stuff. It just didn't make any sense. And it wasn't apparent to me that I was missing out on this kind of stuff. And there's all these choices that you could be making in music that you didn't even know you had. So I kind of took the time to try and put these things together, and it took me so much effort. And I realized that like if someone had taken this time to organize all these things and draw these connections from different classes and subjects that seemed like they were separate, but they're all talking about the same thing. If someone had done that for me in the first place, like my life would have been made so much easier. My ability to learn and make these connections would have been it just would have changed everything for me. If someone could have handed me these simplified notes, you know, it would have changed my life and made things so much easier. So I started realizing, like, if I was wishing that I had this before, if I could go in a time machine and give this to myself, then there's definitely people out there that would want this. Maybe they don't even know that they need it, but if they start seeing these connections and making these revelations for themselves, then you know, they have that epiphany moment. They have that life-changing musical progression moment where everything makes sense. So I started to kind of think about all the stuff I was learning with online marketing and social media through the band, and started thinking, like, if I can combine these interests and tactics with all of my interests with music and all of my passion and all of my knowledge, this is now potential for online revenue. This is ways for me to try and make money. My desire to teach higher level music ideas and to create something new and interesting and important with music can finally be fulfilled. I can reach more people. Like, it's not just, oh, there's the people in the Oakville area at this one studio, or only kids in Burlington, or over here on the Hamilton Mountain. The barriers for who can be reached are gone. And I can reach more of the right people. I'm not going to have somebody who's acting as a gatekeeper to be like, don't teach these kids about like how chords work, and because then they're not gonna buy the books that we sell in the store. Like, that's a terrible way to think about bringing education to people, especially with music. So being able to reach more of the right people and get the message out there to the people that like need to hear it was suddenly something that I was thinking about. So now I can find those people who desire to write. They want to write music, make their own music, and write better music, and push themselves to change and change the world around them. Like, that was the big moment for me when all of this was coming together, and I just wanted to find the people that want to change their music and change their life, make themselves into this transformed vision of themselves that's taking the energy of their music and putting it out into the world and making things better. You know, no big deal or anything. So I needed to start putting my ideas online. So that's where the whole plan came from. I started reading through all my notes and my books and my textbooks, trying to order things, create some kind of curriculum, or, you know, this would lead to this, would lead to this, would lead to this, and these things can be combined. And, you know, if I knew about this before this, then it would make it a bit easier to make that next step. And so I also began researching more about online business and social media strategy. I started learning how to build a website, which I gotta give it to all the people that went to school for programming and web design and everything. Like, I was trying to learn basic like JavaScript coding to try and build this website to have it more functional and more user friendly. Like, not just a bunch of stuff for you to look at. I want to create actual like applications and software that you can use and interact with, and make this more of a practical experience when you're learning about these new concepts. So basically, yeah, it didn't take me very long to figure out that building a website is insanely hard and time consuming, and you're constantly going to be changing your ideas around. Starting a business is same thing, incredibly hard and time consuming, and you don't necessarily know that your idea is an opportunity. There's a big difference. It could just be an idea. It could just be, oh, I want to teach music. I want to talk about cool things with songwriting. Well, is there a market, and is there a way that I can put this together to make people want to learn about this stuff? So there was just endless distraction and, you know, time on trying to build a business is time spent not actually practicing. You know, the more I realize I'm putting myself into this idea, the more I realize that, like, you know, I'm not on the guitar. I want to be making music. And now I'm just over here doing all this crazy stuff. So along the way, you know, like, I was staying home at the time, and just working full time on band stuff. And then, boop, you know, that was gone. They decided they didn't want to work with me anymore. And I was also not happy with the way things were going. And we're still friends. Like, we still talk. I see them out every once in a while and everything. And there's no hard feelings, but just that environment of we're not on the same page anymore. And in trying to choose a next step in a next direction, nobody could really come to an agreement on what really needed to be done. And it, you know, splits were happening. So I was of the mind that if I was gonna save my friendship in the future with these people who I've been a family with for nearly a decade, no, I didn't want to be a part of the band anymore. I had totally accepted that. And so it was difficult because that had been my entire life. And that's just completely turned upside down. So then not long after that, Justine lost her job. She was managing a cafe, bar, restaurant kind of thing, and showed up for work one day and the door was chained shut. So there was like wages withheld and she wasn't getting paid properly to begin with. And yeah, and then surprise, we found out Justine was pregnant. There's a baby on the way. So all of this stuff just happened all at once. We didn't really know what we were gonna do. And then on top of that, you know, we threw a Hail Mary and there was a basic income pilot program being tested in Ontario, my home province. And so we tried to get on it, and luckily we were accepted. So that was supposed to be 3 years of just a check that would like cover our rent and some of our expenses for living. So we were going to have the baby, and I was going to have time to be able to, you know, help her at home with the kids and get this business happening. It was like a godsend. And a new government was elected in, and one of the first things they did was scrap it. And they said that, well, we don't need to get into the politics of it, but it would have changed our lives and would have made things a lot, you know, easier, to say the least. So no, I'm not happy about it, but there was just endless challenges, and there was just this isolation. Like, I felt like everything that I had built my entire life around was turned upside down, and everything was dumped out, and then everything was just gone, and it was just us. And now we have a baby on the way. We don't have any income. We don't have jobs. It was just nuts. But I didn't give up on the idea. You know, I kept working on it and trying to find ways. And one of the things I thought of was to go to school and make this more legitimate. So I managed to get into a business program, which is awesome because, you know, going into debt with student loans kind of sucks, but to be able to take a little bit of money to have a house and food and everything paid for and go to school and have these ideas validated and make these connections and learn the back end of how a business actually runs, doing accounting and legal and marketing and all this stuff, like, it's gonna give this the legs that it needs to stand on, so I can keep creating and making this happen and get out to people. So that's like huge. That's been such a good thing. But the biggest thing has just been this empowerment. After going through so much stuff and feeling like, okay, who even am I? Like, my entire identity had been built around all this other stuff that was over here, and then that was gone. And, you know, the baby was born, got accepted into school, made all this progress over time in putting things together. And, you know, we basically have just started from less than zero, and now everything is coming together. And it's just been this amazing experience of just creating something bigger than myself. And not even just with the business, but, you know, a human life. My son is, you know, he just turned 1, and the past year has just been so amazing. And I feel like I've just learned so much about, I don't know, just finding ways to exceed my potential and make something bigger than myself. And I feel like a lot of that is coming back, like, this is music and music is this, and they're just fueling each other. And it's making everything just like, it's getting me so excited again to be doing this and want to teach and want to make something to help people get to where I am and have these experiences that I've had. Just serving others to help you progress with what I've already learned. You're going to have your own epiphanies. You know, you're going to have your own moments. You're going to have your own challenges that you have to get over or quit instead of doing. So what I want this to be about is, let's talk about all these things that get in the way. Let's talk about all these things that, you know, make you feel like you're lost and you don't have an identity and you don't have any expression. And making music is just such an important thing. We need music that's intelligent and good and emotionally, you know, not a vacuum. We need people out there writing good music based on how they feel. There's tons of people out there that have had it like way worse than me, and they need a way to express that, not just for themselves, but to get out to other people. When you hear a song that or music that is conveying those types of deep personal emotions and experiences, and you relate to that on some level, even though you're not that person and you didn't go through exactly that. That's a huge connection that we get through art and creation, and I think that's so important. So again, the fact that there's people out there that want to do this but think that maybe they can't, I just want to smash that down. I want to get to as many people as possible and just, lift them up and tell them everything that they need to hear and watch them change and watch them transform. So yeah, this is about me going on a journey to, start all of this so that you can have a journey and get on your way. And I'm really excited to see what we can change. And I'm really excited to hear the music of people that, maybe didn't think that they could do it. That's gonna just blow me away when we can start getting that kind of feedback from people who are like, I was so scared, I didn't think that I was going to be good enough to write songs, and here's this one, and I hope you like it. And like, that will bring me to tears. Just that idea alone. It could be it could be something that's like doesn't personally affect me in any way, but it does. Like, just that story behind it. Somebody moving a boulder up the hill and taking those first steps. That's why I'm doing it. That is the reason. That is the creation of MFile. That's why I had to do this and worked like a psychopath for the last 2 years and shut everything out and changed my life around and just dropped so much stuff that, I thought I needed to be a part of me. I thought I needed so much stuff to exist almost and just have my identity wrapped around all these things. And whether I let them go on my own or they were, yanked away, it's just been this incredible rebuilding of something, and the more time I spend with it, the more excited I am to get this out there. So that is the story. That's the backstory of why I decided I need to do this. So hopefully it turns on something in your head. Hopefully that light bulb moment happens and you're like, I'm gonna do this now. I gotta go and I gotta make this happen. So today's section of talking about a record from my collection, I'll come up with a clever name for it at some point, I don't know. But today's record, since I'm wearing the Abbey Road shirt, I thought it would be cute and contrarian. Let it be. So this is the final album that was released by the Beatles, but it was recorded in 1968 between the White Album and Abbey Road. Abbey Road is like an untouchable masterpiece. It is the final album, and they play on it like they know it's gonna maybe be the last one. But this one was a big deal in a lot of ways. It stands out. I mean, 68 was a weird time. The Beatles were rough on each other. They weren't really digging it. The White Album was so crazy out there and, very scattered. But they weren't really working together. A lot of the songs were being recorded separately and they wouldn't see each other in the process. The idea of the Let It Be project, which was originally titled Get Back, because Paul wanted to get back to playing live. So all of the stuff, every song on this record is live. Like, it's live on the studio, or live in the studio, and live on the studio. This is some of the classic last concert where they set up in the middle of January, I think, on the roof of Abbey Road Studios and played one almost half the album is recorded outside on top of the roof of their record studio. So it's like a rare glimpse that you don't really get often with the Beatles. They got very much a studio band. They stopped playing live entirely for years. So the idea was they wanted to just capture that magic that they felt that they maybe lost. So this is a really great record. It's got a lot of cool songs, like Dig a Pony is probably one of my favorite Beatles songs. Also, I've Got a Feeling, Paul's vocals on it are just, it's just like so gritty. But yeah, this is just like a really, it's a dark horse album, but not in the same way as the White Album. So I highly recommend this one just because it's less polished and you're allowed to see how good a band the Beatles were without all the studio magic. And not to say that studio magic isn't something in itself, because it's amazing what they did with their records, but you finally get to understand the Beatles as a live band, and I think that's really important. So that's it for this episode. Again, if you want to get more information, all the links will be down below. You can follow us on our socials and check off all those boxes and try and get as much information happening as possible, and subscribe, and we'll be getting as much materials out as I can as soon as possible. Trust me. I think one of the episodes coming up, I'm going to be talking about some of the projects that I'm killing myself working on, to get you guys changing the way that you look at your music and the way that you look at playing your instrument. Mostly guitar focused, because that's what I do, but I feel like even if you're not technically a guitar player, it's still some deep stuff that you should be thinking about. So thanks so much for joining, and remember, you got to create the music that you hear in your head. That's the goal. Bring that out. So we'll see you next time. Take care.